So the husband of a prominent White House aide you may have heard of calls for the president's impeachment. President Trump says that he would take dirt on his opponents even if it came from foreign intelligence sources. And a West Virginia senator may trade his Senate seat in for the governor's mansion.
Team Rising is here. Joe McLean is a Democratic strategist. Daniel Turner is executive director of Power the Future. Welcome to you both.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
So let's start off with the president's comments. The president made some incendiary, controversial comments to George Stephanopoulos in an ABC News interview from the Oval Office. Let's take a listen.
If somebody called from a country, Norway, we have information on your opponent. Oh, I think I'd want to hear it.
You want that kind of interference in our elections?
It's not an interference. They have information. I think I'd take it. If I thought there was something wrong, I'd go maybe to the FBI if I thought there was something wrong.
Joe?
Yeah.
Thoughts? Feelings?
This is one of those situations that may be lawful but awful.
Yeah.
It's so obviously wrong that nobody ever thought to pass a law against it. It borders on, I'm not calling it treason, but it borders on treason to work with a foreign government to affect our domestic elections. It's so wrong, it's just breathtaking. And so what the President of the United States has basically done is said, it's legal, so if I can get away with it, I'm going to do it.
And the thing is with Trump is, look, everybody voted for him because he doesn't believe in norms, he doesn't believe in any of these things, and so when he breaks them, people still act surprised. I think people wish upon him that, Daniel, I feel like people wish upon him that he would become something that he's not. We elected a man who is what he is. And I think everybody actually kind of knew it. I'm not excusing the conduct. I think it's bad. But in terms of, if we want to get into foreign interference in our elections, we can do that. But everybody's acting so outraged that Trump would go here. He said it in 2016.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Russia, if you're listening.
Yes,
right?
It's out. It's
That's
out
true.
there.
It's not a surprise.
Yeah, and in the hypothetical, he said,
Right.
yeah, hypothetically, if Norway gave me information, I would use it. But there's two ways.
Probably not going to be Norway, but anyway.
It may not. But the way I look at it is this: I agree. It may be lawful, but it's awful. But there are two ways to receive information. You can have it brought to you, or you can go solicit it. So if we don't like foreign interference, how do we feel about the one who solicited it from a foreign agent? Which was the last case. And so the indictment goes both ways. If we don't like this, then we're really making a condemnation of what happened in 2016.
I couldn't agree with you more, Daniel, which is if we truly care about foreign interference, why is the Clinton campaign paying somebody to gallivant around Europe and develop sources and then pay somebody else to push it through the FBI, the CIA? Absolutely, it should be banned. Actually, that should also be illegal. But I think both should be illegal.
Do you guys not recognize the difference
no, it is
between paying a private individual,
foreign,
still paying him,
who may have formerly been an intelligence operative? I'm not arguing that.
Yeah.
But this is someone whose business it is to do this kind of research. So, and first of all, the first guys that paid him were also Republicans, but that's neither here nor there.
Well, they weren't doing the dossier, but...
So you're paying a private individual to do the work that they hire out to do. There is a fundamental difference between that, which is traditional campaign opposition research, which we all do, because we should, right? We should know about people.
But here's the question. As a person who does this yourself...
The state of Russia, who is our declared enemy almost, bringing information to directly impact the election of the President of the United States.
Russian government officials were quoted by Steele in his dossier. He was dealing directly with the Russian government, paid for by the Clinton campaign. I don't think that's defensible. And you called it traditional opposition research. You do this for a living. It's not traditional to work with foreign governments. It's not. But again, Steele is not a foreign government.
He's a private individual.
He's a Clinton. This man is essentially on the Clinton payroll working with the foreign government.
But here's my
question. If this was with Trump,
though,
it would not. It would be the story of the century.
But here's my question, though. Joe, Trump has not. He got away with this. Mm-hmm. Congress is not looking at passing any laws to make this illegal. Are Democrats going to say, okay, fine, we're going to play this game too?
They may now. I think the House may, but the Senate probably won't.
The Senate's please, Mitch McConnell's not going to do a darn thing about this. But, are Democrats going to say, okay, well, fine, we will also take, if China wants to help us in this election, we're open to that. We're going to take that information as well.
Can't do it.
Is this the new normal?
It's just wrong. It's just wrong. Look, it's wrong. Democrat, Republican, libertarian, it's just wrong. Grumpy Cat wouldn't do this.
No. I agree with you. I don't like any of this. But if you don't like it in this component, you don't like it in the whole ball of wax.
It needs to be a holistic condemnation.
Exactly.
Well, it does, and I would certainly I would encourage the House of Representatives to immediately make this a crime, and then let it die in the Senate, and let people watch Mitch McConnell squirm.
Yeah.
Well, we should also move on. We have a new Quinnipiac poll about impeachment at the same time that the White House counselor Kellyanne Conway's husband is actually calling for the president's impeachment in the Washington Post. I would rather read it in the Washington Post than on his Twitter feed. But from the Quinnipiac poll, 69% of American voters say in a Quinnipiac poll that 24%, released today, that 24% the president should be charged with a crime after he or she leaves office. Now, in support for charging a sitting president, it's 35% amongst Republicans, 83-12 amongst Democrats, which I think is really something.
But even,
and
I mean,
68-26
I find it interesting. Even a majority of Republicans
Yeah.
think that a sitting president
can be charged.
Yes.
Yeah.
Should be charged if they commit a crime.
Yeah, no, I would agree with this. I mean, this is again a hypothetical. If the sitting president commits a crime, should he be charged? Probably the best way to charge it, though, is necessarily not in the court of law, but in the impeachment process. So this is where exactly there is a process to indict a sitting president, which is impeachment and then brought to trial in the Senate. So if the Democrats have the goods on President Trump, like they claim, remember Adam Schiff said he had the evidence, he had the proof that collusion happened. Well, then bring it, and let's just move on with this, right? We've been in 2 years now. Maxine Waters first started calling for impeachment 2 weeks after Trump was inaugurated.
That's right.
So for more than 2 years, we've been saying impeach, impeach, impeach. All right, well, if you're going to do it, let's just do it. Or keep your mouth shut and wait for the election to be the impeachment.
I mean, Joe, I think this is a pretty interesting piece of information for Democrats, just from a political perspective. And you saw Kamala Harris, I think this week, saying that she thought it was unavoidable that the DOJ should charge Trump if he's committed crimes after he's out of office. But this seems like Americans are on board with more accountability for the sitting president than we may have expected.
And I think Americans generally demonstrate pretty solid common sense. I mean, if you look at this over the very long view, and I'm talking about the very long view, why did Julius Caesar take his legions and cross the Rubicon? Because he knew if he gave up the imperium of his command and he didn't have an army to back him up and returned to Rome, he would be charged with all kinds of crimes. Now, whether they were legitimate or not doesn't matter. The fact is, it brought down the Republic, okay? We're not anywhere near that here.
That is a long view.
But the example holds, right?
Yeah.
So can the president be charged with high crimes and misdemeanors by the House? Of course he can. What are misdemeanors? It's one of the things we really don't talk about. The word misdemeanor doesn't mean to us today what it meant to the founders. Mm-hmm. It meant that he comported himself in a way that his demeanor showed he wasn't fit for office. That's what that word means.
Yes.
It doesn't mean he TP'd somebody's yard or tipped cows or something. It means that he is not fit for office. Misdemeanor. His demeanor is wrong for the office. And it's serious business.
Well, this is why
there are those of us who think there's no question but what this man has misdemeanor.
But I do wonder, Joe, in the same poll, support for impeachment, 62-32 amongst Democrats. Can you be a Democratic candidate today and not support impeachment? If you're looking at these numbers, I have watched Elizabeth Warren skyrocket in these polls, and a lot of people are saying yes because her plan message is resonating. I'm semi-skeptical on that. I think it's impeachment. I think that she was one of the hard driving forces on charging Trump with obstruction of justice and beginning impeachment because there is such a hunger for this in the Democratic base.
There is, and of course, it doesn't matter what the presidential candidates think, right? This decision resides with the leadership of the House of Representatives.
Sure.
Having said that, the numbers are beginning to move. The more you see, the more that comes out, these numbers are the numbers of people who believe that Trump did something illegal are climbing, okay? I've never been one who believed that impeachment was the right way to go for the good of the Republic. I've never thought that was the right thing to do. On the other hand, I'm old enough to remember Watergate when the numbers were strikingly similar to what they are now, and it wasn't until you got well into the process that the public numbers flipped, and it was clear that Nixon had to go, right? So I think the more we learn and the more that the facts, not hyperbole, but facts are laid out before the American people, the more those numbers are going to move.
Daniel, let me ask you about the drama piece. George Conway, Kellyanne's husband, penning this op-ed in the Washington Post along with Neil Katyal, former acting Solicitor General. He said, much ink has been spilled about whether President Trump committed a criminal impeachable offense by obstructing justice. That question deserves extensive debate, but another critical question, the ultimate question really, is not whether he committed a crime, but whether he is even fit for office in the first place. And that question, the heart of an impeachment inquiry, turns upon whether the president abuses his power. I mean, what is that is some stuff, right? Can you imagine that household?
Yeah.
Your wife is working for the man very prominently, and you're saying he should be impeached.
Yeah, and to use a phrase of my friend here, I'm old enough to remember when we did have a White House power couple on opposite sides, and it was Mary Matlin and James Carville, and they composed themselves with a lot of dignity. And so I don't know the Conways. I'm not going to pass judgment on them as a couple or their behavior, but I got to think if my wife were supporting someone who I disagree with politically, which is a lot of people in this town, right? You just kind of keep your mouth shut.
I mean,
and
I'm
roll
not
with
going to
the
pass
punches.
judgment either, but I will say I would kill my husband if he did something like this. Like that would be game over right there.
And that's the other thing. This tawdry to question other people's marriages and all this stuff. I think it's. I'm more on it. I think George Conway is actually being quite disrespectful. His wife is a senior government official, one of the most powerful women in America, and to be going out here and just cutting her legs out from under her and having the media talk about this, I think it's gross.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and exactly the same way of Conway. Of James Carville and Mary Matlin. They were both political powerhouses.
Right.
George Conway isn't. He's not a leading thought figure here in American politics.
Lawyer,
just put your head down and do your job.
Right.
I mean,
support your wife.
And that is, I mean, that is part of what makes this so odd. And I agree with you, Sagar. Kind of, it sits wrong with me too because George Conway only has this platform because of
his wife.
His wife.
As Trump calls him, Mr. Kellyanne Conway.
You hit it right on the head. You know, James and Mary comported themselves with a certain amount of dignity and humor.
You can call them James and Mary. I can't.
Well, I don't know them. I've done campaigns with James, so I know.
We should also talk about, though, the
Senate
West
map.
Virginia race. Yes.
So, Joe, I want to get your thoughts on this one. Joe Manchin, I've known this for a while, is thinking about running for governor. He's never, I think, really loved the Senate. It's hard being a national Democrat in West Virginia these days. He won his reelect, but it was a lot closer than he thought it was going to be. Lost the coalfields for the first time ever, which was a big deal. So he's looking at going back home, running for governor against Jim Justice, who was a Democrat, ran for as a Democrat, switched to be a Republican, is very unpopular. They continue to have a lot going on there in terms of the teacher movement that he's handled very poorly. First, just on the West Virginia politics, but also how does this affect the dynamic of Democrats having any shot at taking back the Senate?
Okay, my folks in West Virginia tell me that Manchin can be reelected governor.
I think so too. Justice
he's
is
just
weak.
in the toilet. I mean, it's just awful.
And people there still love Joe. I mean, they do.
Of course they do. And if you have the choice of being governor, where you have your own state police protection and a driver and a place to live, and you got your own airplane, and everybody calls you governor and kowtows. Other than being in the Senate, where you sort of like have trouble hailing a cab in Washington.
You do get a pin, though. You do get a pin.
That's true. It's a nice pin.
It is a nice pin.
Cloakroom in a taxi. That's what you get.
But the pin won't get you a taxi. Let's be real. It might get you an Uber.
Yes.
What would your choice be, especially when you're looking at? And Joe Manchin is not an old man by any means, but you're looking at the capstone of your political career. And why would you stay in the Senate where Mitch McConnell won't let anything happen? We talk about Trump all the time, but I personally think the most dangerous man in America is Mitch McConnell. Think about his history. For 8 years under Obama, nothing moved. People got really frustrated with the American government because nothing moved. So they elected a guy who promised to blow everything up. You can lay Donald Trump right at Mitch McConnell's
That's part
feet.
of the story for sure. Daniel, what about just looking at this map? I mean, there are a lot of seats in play where that are Republican. Now we got it up there now. All the red ones, those are ones that are up and where Republicans hold the seat. But it is a tough-looking map for Democrats, and of course, if Manchin decides to run for governor, which I think he probably will,
Then that's an
just
automatic RC.
almost automatic. We'll say almost
Yeah.
automatic, but it's West Virginia. You never know there, but that's going to be a tough one.
Yeah, it will, and it will really remake, I think, the power of the Senate, because it will consolidate a lot more and make Mitch McConnell a more powerful senator. My concern of this, I appreciate Senator Manchin's decision to do whatever is best for him, but I kind of like the fact that the Senate is hard. I'm not going to lie. I have the same problem with this decision as I did with Senator Flake leaving. Wow, my job is hard. I can't get anything done. I'm going to go. I like the fact that you have to fight in the Senate, and I wish they fought with a little bit more dignity. I wish they fought with a little bit more solutions as well. But the fact that it's hard to get things done in the Senate, I don't see necessarily as a negative thing. It's time to be a leader. If you're the true bipartisan candidate, kind of the way Flake portrayed himself, if you're the one who can talk to both sides of the aisle to find common ground, then do it. And if you can't do it, well, then maybe you should just retire completely from public life.
Oh, interesting. Thank you so much for joining us, both of you.
Great to have you both.
Thank you.
Coming up, this morning attacks have been reported on oil tankers in the Middle East. We're going to get you up to speed on that one.
And the kibosh is being put on the congressional pay raise, and a new report reveals deaths from drugs, suicide, and alcohol are at an all-time high. Those stories when Rising continues.